Okay, in section 2.3, we're going to talk about addition and subtraction of integers. And in section 2.4, we'll talk about multiplication and division of integers. I'm going to combine these onto one page here. And let's begin by looking at this equation. 3 plus 2 equals, well, we know that equals 5. But what are we saying? Let's use the number line and look at what we're saying. We're saying the idea that 3, when we add 2 to it, or 1, 2, we get 5. So it's just moving one increment, well actually 2 increments to the right on the number line. So I could do the same thing with the negative numbers. I could say maybe -3, oops, lag plus 2 equals, well, -3. Now that's here. I add 2, 1, 2. Well, this equals -1 then. Okay, very good. So let's do another addition here. Let's do -7 plus 4. What does that equal? Well, -7 plus 4, it's kind of like the same thing as saying, well, really, this is the same thing as saying 4 minus 7. And let's see how that works out for us. We'll use orange here. So -7 plus 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4. It equals -3. But I said it was the same thing as 4 minus 7. Well, let's check that out. If we start here at 4 and we go 7 this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And sure enough, it does equal -3. Some other examples include -8 plus 6 equals -2. And we'll go off the number line here. -14 plus 27. What's the same thing as 27 minus 14? That equals +13. Okay. All right, so what about 13 minus a -4? What does this equal? Well, before we do this, we need to look in detail what we're doing here. We're saying 13 minus something in parentheses, -4 here. So technically what we're doing here is we're saying 13 minus 1 times a -4 equals. So before we do that, we need to figure out how to multiply negative numbers together. Okay, let's look at the 4 different ways we could multiply numbers. And let's just look at multiplying the value of 1. So +1 times +1. Well, that equals 1 times 1 equals 1. It makes sense. 1, 1 equals 1. Okay, so what if we had -1 times 1? Well, this is multiplication. We could switch the order. This is also the same, give us the same result as 1 times a minus 1. Well, what is this? Well, minus 1 times 1, there's only 1 minus 1, so this obviously equals minus 1. Okay, so far that's pretty intuitive. So let's rewrite this one down here. So we have positive 1 times minus 1 equals minus 1. So if I had here, obviously, 6 times 8, this equals 48. But let's make this minus 6 now. Well, that's going to be kind of like minus 6 plus minus 6 plus minus 6 plus minus 6, 4, 5, 6. If I had 6 of these minus 6's added, I'm starting, if we scroll up here to our number line, I'm starting at this minus 6, and then I'm subtracting 6 off. I'll be at minus 12. I'll subtract 6 off. I'll be minus 18. 6 more off will be minus 24. 6 more off, minus 30. 6 more off, minus 36. We're missing 2 up here. 6 off, minus 42. 6 off, minus 48. So this is minus 48. The same way that minus 1 times 1 is minus 1. And if I did 6 times negative 8, well, we know that's just the same as reversing these. So we know it's going to give us the same result, minus 48. So then the question is, so okay, it all seems intuitive up to this point. Now I ask, what is minus 1 times minus 1? What does this equal? Well, the answer is positive 1. And the reason is not just an arbitrary reason. The reason it equals positive 1 is because when we start developing rules for math, we need our rules to follow certain situations. For example, we want our rules here of integers to follow the distribution law. Namely, A times B plus C, something we saw that we were doing earlier in the class, in last chapter, is the same thing as A times B plus A times C. Well, we need our rules for integer to follow this system. So in order for that to occur, let's look at a test case. Say we have minus 2 times minus 1 plus 1 equals, well, we know that minus 1 plus 1 is equal to 0. Minus 1 plus 1 equals 0 times minus 2. And our rules for 0 is 0 times any number is 0. So this must equal 0. So this must equal 0. And this then equals, if we're going to distribute this, we could also say this equals minus 2 times minus 1 plus minus 2 times positive 1. Let's put parentheses on these just to make it easier. Minus 2 plus positive 1. Well, we know this, minus 2 times minus 1, this should equal minus 2, because we already showed we could do that up above. So minus 2 times minus 1, this is a multiplication sign, not an x. Minus 2 times minus 1 equals, well, if this has to equal 0, then it says that this must equal whatever makes this equal 0. And if this is minus 2, this has to be positive 2. And let me write it in red, actually. This has to be equal to positive 2. There's no other choice. So therefore, negative times a negative equals a positive number. That's how mathematicians decided that was what the answer was. Now, I have trouble using intuition to look at this. So it's just important just to remember this. But maybe some of you actually can think of this intuitively and what's actually happening when you take minus 1 times minus 1 times. Or in other words, we could have minus 6 times minus 5 equals positive 30. Positive number. Switch to a smaller thing. Minus 2 times minus 12 equals positive 24. So those are some examples. So okay, we can go further and we can combine numbers. We could say 3, I'm going to use a dot for multiplication now. 3 times minus 6 and times minus 1. Whenever you have two numbers that are in parentheses next to each other, you can just assume there's a multiplication there. What does this equal? Well, we could do this in a couple ways. We could take minus 6 times minus 1, and we see that that equals 6, and then 3 times that equals 18. Or we could have done 3 times minus 6 is minus 18, times minus 1 is positive 18. Okay, so if we can do that, we can circle back around to the question we asked earlier when we were doing addition. What about 13 minus minus 4? Well, that's the same thing as 13 minus 1 times minus 4, or 13 minus 1 times minus 4. Or actually, this would make more sense if I would write it like this. 13 plus a minus 1 times a minus 4. So it's 13 plus minus times a minus is a positive, so 1 times 4 is 4. So positive 4 equals 17. Okay, so let's do another. 6 minus minus 1. This is the same thing as 6 plus minus 1 times minus 1 is a positive 1 equals 7. Let's do another one. Minus 7 plus minus 7. Let's subtract off here. Get rid of this big. Minus 7 minus a negative 2. So same thing as minus 7 plus 2, which is going to be minus 5. Okay, the rules for division are the same as multiplication. Positive divided by positive equals a positive. Negative divided by positive equals negative. Positive divided by negative equals negative. Negative divided by negative equals positive. Here's some examples. Don't have time to go through these, so I'm going to end the video here for these sections.